Hi, Sachin.
Hey Dinkar,
So, this could well be our last podcast for this year.
do you know how many podcasts did we do in this year?
I think this year, I don't know. I think this is our 31st. So, sure, 15 maybe in this year,
Okay,
something like that.
so I think next year we cannot do lesser than this.
We cannot. We're falling into the trap of the now you have a metric. Now, every year, everywhere, you have to keep on improving it till it's like every other day maybe every day we're recording a podcast to manage
So we
that.
should think about what are the good outcome metrics for this podcast, Dinkar, so
Yeah, we
that we
should.
can set it. Otherwise it will be like, okay, you are just sitting there and talking. Anyway, that is the goal of the podcast. So maybe the metric is fun. Like
Yeah.
we should have fun,
Uh, we
and
we
hopefully
digress.
listeners are having fun.
We digress very less often these days than we did before.
Yeah, you
Maybe
got serious, Dinkar. You
I
got
got
really
serious.
serious.
Yeah. It's because the book is coming, so maybe I'm trying to build some gravitas and sound like feel like a real. I got
But you may
my
lose.
new glasses have little thick rim also that also
Yeah,
gives me professorial look. I think.
yeah. But Dinkar, in that process, you may lose our real audience who came for digressions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
So,
talking about digressions, the thing that I wanted to discuss today was our discussion with one of our colleagues who proposed a metric as a metric for team excellence. And though on the first blush, I can understand why he thought that this is a good metric, but after a few questions and analysis, turned out it's not. And let's do that because what I also am hoping that as we go through it, as we understand a metric, understands its effect, the possible side effects, these can probably act as a way for other folks to kind of use the analysis to see if that metric is really a good outcome metric, is really a good metric of team's excellence. So take it, Sachin, talk to us about that metric and how the conversation followed.
so one of our teammate recently talked about it, but I have heard about this metric earlier, and uh, so let's understand the context. Otherwise, passing the judgment that this is not a good metric might not make sense because there is a similar metric available which we use on a regular basis and we like it. So the context is this is a team. Think about any team. I mean, like once I start describing this team, you might have come across a similar situation in your life as well. The team is struggling with uh, issues which are getting reopened. So mostly these are regression issues or these are inadequately fixed issues. And when that happened, one of the leader decided that they want to use bug reopen rate as a metric. Now, on the prima facie, it seems like a great idea because in their hypothesis, what they are feeling is the biggest bleeding is happening because of they are fixing issues, they are going to production, and at least some part of that issue is remaining to be unfixed. This could be a result of QA not being adequate. The developers are not being very meticulous about understanding the scope of the issue, or it could be also a combination of both in varying degrees. Now, if the leader says that, okay, I want to measure bug reopen rate, and obviously when a senior leader says that I want to assess this bug reopen rate, they are going to be very minute about it, right? Like there will be discussions ensued, like people will be not only triaging, but there will be consequences, I would say. I mean, like the
Yeah.
people will fear there are consequences of these type of things. So when I heard about this, I was like, what? This is a bad idea. And uh, the other person was not understanding why I'm saying that. But think about it a little bit differently. We have spoke about this particular aspect on our podcast multiple times. Is rather than just coming up with a list of metric, you should also think about why am I even measuring it and what is an impact of this type of action. And if you are thinking about the impact and intention both, then you will be able to create a very good strategy around how to read that data, converse about that information with team, and also take their buy-in into addressing that and improving that. So here the issue might happen is, let's say I am that verbal the tech leader, and you are one of the developers, Dinkar, and I am taking a case of everyone who is responsible for this bug reopen. And similar defect, we call that escape defects, like defects which
Yep.
escape the testing and went to production, and we like that. So now the issue is, if there is a developer on the team, they will say, you know what, do whatever, buddy, please do not reopen the issue, because if you open a bug and assign it to me, I will fix it, because it is low friction for me.
Yeah.
But if you reopen the bug, now I have to face the music. I have to go on to those special meetings, listen to the special thing, justify what went wrong, and that's just too much hassle for a very small bug. So first, the team becomes extremely defensive. They start
Hmm.
arguments about, whenever a QA says this is a reopened issue, people are going to get mad. Number two, even if that's okay, QAs as well as devs will now be extra cautious on fixing bugs. They will
Hmm.
say, I want to be double, triple, quadruple sure that the bug is fixed in all scenarios. And when that happens, you know what happens? Your bug fixing rate reduces.
Hmm.
Now people are becoming extremely safe. So, four key metrics, when we do that, we have advocated many times to people that, your goal is not to just improve lead time, and your goal is not to just reduce change fail percentage. If you decided that I do not want to have change fail percentage at all, that means zero production defects, you will make your team so slow, so defensive, that your lead time will go through roof.
Hmm.
You want to have a perfect balance that encourage the team to, it's okay to make mistakes, accept that as a reality, yet make say them, we want to be under a threshold, and let's not try to have like big boulder
Yeah.
blocker defects going to production. So you can create these sanity checks, you can create smoke test suites, automated test suites, build promotion, canary releases. There are like at least 10 strategies you can deploy to make sure that you do not release bugs which will stop critical customer flows. Now, if you think about all of this, that although such an innocent metric, that bug reopen rate would, I will track it and I will try to minimize it, and that will improve my team's effectiveness, that can become extreme drag and friction on your team, which you will only realize 2 months down the line or 3 months
Hmm.
down the line. You may achieve a lower bug reopen rate, but you will lose a bigger battle of productivity across the board.
Yeah.
And this is an impact of, like, we see metrics as such a simple thing, but the consequences could be much higher.
Yeah. Sachin, I'm also wondering, right? Uh, how much of the consequences, right? The intent is little general across features, the things that you called out, and how many of these are very specific to this specific metric in us, right? Because what I do want to understand and kind of call out, there is a, yes, every metric has to be seen through these um, lenses, right? However, this metric lends itself too much to this kind of behaviors, like getting defensive and then trying to figure out how to game it. So can you spend some time in calling out a little more specifically, maybe with an example, what is so special about this special metrics?
So if I understood correctly, you want uh, the intent and impact of how to measure it and with an
Right,
example.
because let's say team getting defensive is going to happen with a big, category of metrics, right, in which this one falls. So
Yeah.
that calls out that when we are thinking of metrics, there's a cultural aspect to it, right? As a
Right.
manager or as an executive, you should think about what my intent is and how the team will take my intent and how the team will measure the, what kind of consequences it will have on the team. So there's that thought process, right, in general. uh, the reason I want to call it out is that I worry that some people will say that, hey, that's true for every kind of metric, right?
Not true.
And they may not understand the nuance about this specific one or this specific category of metrics, why they lend themselves more to this kind of scenarios than others.
Fair enough. Now I understand. So a- generally, you're right. Anytime, anybody, even if you put me under some sort of scanner, my behavior will alter. I
For
mean,
example, as you were talking in the background, I was thinking, what, where can I digress? So, like, what pop culture reference can I
I'll
bring
give you,
in?
I'll give
I'm
you, I'll give you a
already,
digression.
yeah,
I'll give you a digression. Anytime
yeah,
you put any human under
yeah,
some sort of scrutiny, their behavior will change.
yeah,
And there is that well-known phenomena, right? When doctors actually ask, like, put that blood pressure measurement strap on their shoulders, right? They anticipate the blood pressure will rise by a couple of points. So when they are, they just
they
anticipate that.
factor that into the measurements.
They
Yeah,
factor that in because it is just common behavior. You feel that, okay, I am relaxed as long as nobody is monitoring me. You put a measurement on me and my behavior change. I drove car for 12 years and I went into US. And obviously, being a hardcore Indian driver, I am extremely skilled compared to our North American friends, right? I can drive always with one hand. I'm just joking. So these are all bad habits you get in India, right? Is you are driving only with one hand. If you are used to stick shift, then you change gear so frequently that you develop a tendency to put your hand onto stick.
yeah,
And these all bad habits were ingrained in me. So when the instructor, by the way, my friend taught me, these are all bad habits, don't do this, because here you will actually be failed if you actually don't follow these rules.
mm,
I was like, okay, fine, but you know what, I have been driving car for so long. So I went in, sat in, and I did all the fouls which were in my bloodstream, right? Yeah.
all your
I,
muscle memory took over.
all my muscle memory kicked in. She once reminded me, this is an automatic car. Put your both hands on the steering wheel, 10 and 2 position. My one hand was onto the automatic gear lever. The second time, and the lady was so nice. She told me, uh, y- like, you jumped this signal. I said, no, I did not. It turned green. Yes, you turned green, and you stopped, and then you jumped like little bit rapidly.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I was so conscious that I should not jump the signal. Like,
yeah,
I was like, I took a pause, I stopped there, and then started. So all these kind of things, because I became extremely anxious of my own behavior.
being
So
observed.
similar thing will happen here. If you are putting a metric onto team, their behavior will slightly alter.
Mm,
It is very critical that anytime you say these are the metrics which you want to measure, the team should feel that these are good and they are not to blame one person.
mm,
Anytime any set of metric you bring to the table, and these are generic applicable to the entire team, you will see that people will buy into that. They will
mm,
feel happy to support it. If they feel anytime a metric will only isolate me and put me into bad light, they will give it, or
mm.
they will resent it. This bug reopen rate has that tendency. It
Yes.
singles person out. It isolates issue. If you say my team's escape defect rate is below 5%, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
But you say every time I'm going to see a bug reopen rate jumping up, I'm going to have a conversation with you. Not good idea,
Yeah.
because now that metric is not used for elevating performance
Yeah.
but to monitor performance. I think there is a difference, right? Anytime you put a metric for constructive upliftment of the team, that's good. Similarly, it's like, I'll tell you one of my friends reference. This is like 2005, and in Mumbai there used to be a very famous gym chain. I wouldn't name it now, but it is still there. And my friend was a little overweight, and he told me the instructor there was so rude, so shrewd, that every week they used to do weigh-in,
Yeah.
and she used to be very like mean, like, what are you eating, that type of thing. Your weight is not reducing, what are you eating?
Hmm.
Now the problem is that suddenly you are, first of all, your weight is already high, you are conscious, you are paying money so that you can reduce your weight, and on top of it you are taking this abuse in public space. Like, this cannot be good in any way.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if there is an institute which is actually saying, you know what, I want to make you fit, like athletes, right? They are measuring every single aspect of their body, like body fat percentage, mineral quantities, protein, all that thing. The athletes never, I mean, like, in some cases they are under tremendous pressure, but athletes know that this is for my better performance.
Elevation.
This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
my, the intention is different. So here it is job of leadership that whenever they are bringing metrics, they are adding metrics to any dashboard, Excel sheet, uh, whatever tool you are using, be sure that the team does not feel these are to single them out. They are
Right.
actually for the group. If they are not for the group and you are using this metric to single people out, that's a like a, don't even bother putting this metric, because you will have like some short gains, but these will destroy your culture big time in like 5 to 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. And thanks, Sachin, for such an elaborate explanation. And I really like the phrase that you have used. Hopefully, this was useful for everyone. And in coming days, we'll try to pick few interesting metrics like this. And if anyone who's watching this or listening to this has a metric that they want to understand and want to discuss with us, let us know, and we can figure out how to do that, so that we can
Yeah,
actually try to kind of do a much more deeper thinking into why metrics A is a good
yeah,
fitness metric and why metric B may not be.
exactly. And we should sometime talk about counter metrics,
Yeah.
or counterbalance metrics. And the reason to bring those into picture would be to ensure that whenever there are certain directionality you are tracking,
Yeah.
they may have short term dip onto the other critical parts of your system. So we
Yeah.
will talk about that as well eventually. uh, uh, in in recent times, I also thought about how these metrics can be applied in the business context, like not only to
Mm.
the technology, but although our topic on this podcast is predominantly um, related to technology, but business outcomes has some aspect of it, so we may at some later stage talk about those two.
It just because we are not businessmen today doesn't mean we can't talk about business, right? So
I mean, it never stopped us. Like, if you are not expert, that's where the YouTube comes in, right? Is like, you don't need to be expert to like put your opinion out there. So,
yeah. Take care, Sachin. Have a good year ahead
hey,
of
happy
you.
New Year, happy
Yeah.
holidays to everybody, and like see you
Yeah.
in the next year.
Happy holidays, everyone. Bye bye.